Okay. Thanks so much. David, you have some questions?
No, I was just going to piggyback on 2 points that were made. This is an excellent conversation between the two professors. This really is. Representative Rabb, one of the things that Mike and I have been involved in locally is a regional initiative to build a comprehensive 5-year racial equity strategy for the region that's incorporating strategic business leaders, political leaders, people of influence, major nonprofits, educational institutions. Part of that process is a partnership with the Federal Reserve and out of Philadelphia, and they have an initiative called Reinventing Communities. One of the very first things that they talked about when we started to engage them in their process was reparations. The Federal Reserve is talking of reinventing communities. Yes, yes, yes. We all but passed out. Like, wait a minute, am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Right.
So there's an emerging recognition that all the things that we've tried to do as society to sidestep and to ignore the systemic impact of chattel slavery is beginning to recognize there's only one real solution to kind of move us forward. The other thing I have is more of a question for you, former legislator, county commissioner. The work that you're doing with police reform, what is it? How can we connect what's happening at the state level with police reform and what happens at the local level in our community?
You got me. I don't know what you brought me into, Michael. I swear, it's like
I brought you into a serious conversation, brother. That's why I brought you in.
I asked that for the benefit of our folks. I led the judiciary for Lehigh County for 8 years. So I want you to educate the folks that are listening to understand the synergies.
You have no idea how moved I am by your question. Here's why. One of the 2 bills that was enacted into law this summer was a bill that I wrote and introduced 4 years ago that didn't see the light of day. It was amended into a conservative Democrats bill. So 95% of that bill was my bill under his name. Mm-hmm. Last minute, allies of the Fraternal Order of Police created a loophole so that all kinds of bad actors can slip through there and allow someone, a cop, sheriff, constable, campus police officer, state trooper, to leave one place and get hired at another without any transparency. Now we're seeing folks in law enforcement, this is no surprise to a lot of folks, that some of the folks in law enforcement are fascists, are white supremacists, are misogynists, all the ists, right? Insurrectionists. And maybe there's some folks in your area. There were a couple in Philly who were on the police force who got caught up in that. And if they were to quit before they're fired, they could sneak through this loophole. So if we don't amend that law, it's now Act 57 of 2020, which we have very little chance of doing. The only other way we can close this loophole, shut it down and make this law so much stronger, is on the local level. So we can create ordinances on the county level and on the municipal level to say to the authorities that hire law enforcement that they attest to not accepting the applications of anyone who has a yellow flag connected to Act 57. And I will I'll put another link in the chat for you all to see what those 10 categories of misconduct are. Because right now, the only way we can have transparency to see if someone has snuck in is if they have final and binding disciplinary action. Well, 98% of folks who get caught up with some really bad stuff, it's not final or binding. So the vast majority of people who we are afraid are going to kill our sons, our daughters, will get a free pass through this loophole. So we can kill that loophole through folks like you who are former county commissioners, city council people, township supervisors on the local level. And that's a powerful thing. We don't need to wait for the right-wing extremists in Harrisburg to grow a conscience. We can do it right now. And I'm doing that in Philly, and I'm working with other folks across the state. So anybody who wants to work with me to do that in your part of Pennsylvania, you have all my information. And I'm going to put a link to Act 57 so you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
And there's another dimension and level of accountability here. I also had the privilege to serve on the Police and Fire Department Civil Service Board. As you know, that's the gateway into the force.
Right.
Hiring and promotion policies, right?
Yep.
And so one of the challenges is how do we partner with initiatives like this and have a better gatekeeping system for people even getting onto the force. One of the things that we tried to push, and we got beat down by the state, because the state kind of governs the civil service piece, even on the local level, was I wanted to implement a racial bias screen for police officers.
Yes.
Right. So we have a lie detector test. So there's all these questions you ask a police officer, and you put them on a lie detector test. Everybody knows lie detector test isn't even permissible in court, right? But we're allowed to do it. But we were told that we weren't allowed to do a racial bias screening. The other piece is, you mentioned the FOP. Mike and I talk about this all the time. So on the local level, when we're talking about how do we bring accountability to police officers? How do we reimagine police forces? One of the institutions that's always left out in the formula is the FOP. And if you're ever going to get the police department to accept more accountability, to accept civilian oversight, there's going to need to be an engagement with the FOP. They have to be part of that conversation somehow, some way. And from a practical legislative point, it's holding people on city council and the mayor accountable in this sense. Oftentimes, you are not going to get these unions to give up protections freely. You're going to have to buy some of the things that you want. There's going to have to be an investment. I led labor negotiations for the county for a number of years. There's going to have to be a willingness when we're negotiating that contract to say, these are the accountabilities we want. And instead of giving you a 3% increase for 3 years, we'll only give you 3.5% increase for 4 years to buy the accountability that we want. And that has to be part of the thought process for our local leaders.
I agree. And at the heart of that fight is amending Act 111. And I'm going to put a link into the chat right now. You all need to know it. And it was enacted in a very important year, 1968. 1968, which is really important in this conversation on this day. It was not a coincidence. It was in the aftermath of Black protests that they enacted a law that gave the FOP in Pennsylvania superpowers. Yep. It weaponized FOP as a carve out specifically to this, and I use this in air quotes, union. Union. It did not provide the level of privilege to any other unions except the FOP. And when Black legislators over the past 9 months, myself included, talked to our brothers and sisters in labor, we said we need to overhaul Act 111. They said, well, that's it's a slippery slope because then you're going to hurt worker rights and the labor force is like, all of us are pro-labor. So that's a non-issue for us. It's not a Trojan horse for us as Black legislators representing folks who are most likely to be brutalized by police.
Yep.
And two, read the act. And when we made them review Act 111, they were shocked at how much power the FOP had that no other union had. And they couldn't really say anything. So I'm going to put this in the chat right now so you all can review it at your leisure right now.
Thank you, Representative.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to get back to another Zoom call. I put all my information in here. So let me hear from you, because it's clear this was no accident. And brother Michael, I really appreciate you inviting me into this august group of troublemakers. I feel very at home here. Let's keep it going. Let's do what we can.
And just to let you know, we do have, this is the first group composed of Generation Z, where we've got Generation X, we got Generation Y, we got Millennials, and we got Boomers. So it's a multi-generational discussion, which is a great thing. Okay.
Love it. Well, look, I'll come back anytime. I mean, I gravitate towards good trouble. So I'm all in.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, folks. Be well and be safe.
Okay. Yes,